Hey, everybody. All right, so let's talk about some levels of organization when it comes to biology. So, looking at this slide right here, something we've talked about before in class is that really the body is a giant machine. If you look at this picture here, I think it illustrates it really well. It shows that every part of the body has its own job, its own function, but all these different parts work together to accomplish one big job, which is to keep this body alive. So even though all these things have different things that they do, they all work together to keep this body working, to keep it alive. And that's why we say the body's like a great big machine. Now, the body can be organized into different levels. Smallest level is a non-living level, and we call that level an atom. And we've talked about atoms before, right? So atoms are the smallest part of everything. Everything in the world is made up of atoms. Now, we could get smaller than an atom. We could talk about its nucleus, which has protons and neutrons, and that there's electrons going around the outside. And then we could get smaller than that, but we're not going to do that. We're just worried about the fact atom. We're going to say that's the smallest level. That's why I'm cutting it off. It's non-living, but it's the smallest level. Now, a bunch of atoms together are going to give you a molecule. So a molecule are two or more atoms bonded together. Now, they could be different or they could be the same. It doesn't matter as long as they're bonded together. So if we look at this right here, this is an example of a molecule. We definitely have different atoms all bonded together. We've got carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, all bonded together. This is a good organic molecule here, right? All right, so when we have different molecules working together, sometimes these molecules can make an organelle. Now, an organelle is a small structure inside of a cell, and they perform different functions to keep the cell working. Remember, the mitochondria created energy for the cell through respiration. The lysosomes cleaned up dead and broken parts and recycled them. The Golgi apparatus helped deliver things. The ribosomes made proteins. All those are examples of organelles. Now, when it comes to organelles, we have a bunch of those working together, and then we got a cell. A cell is the most basic living part of something. It is the smallest part of something that we still consider alive. Now, we've talked about the general cell in class, but really, in reality, there's a lot of different specialized cells. So specialized cells like here, like this skin cell, like this bone cell, any of these muscle cells, this neuron, which is a nerve cell, all these would count. A blood cell, we've talked about a blood cell a lot, right? That's an example of a specialized cell. Now, cells don't exist alone in a human body, in a living body, normally. Usually what happens is that these cells work together. And when we have cells working together, kind of connected and doing the same job, we call that a tissue. Now, tissues are groups of cells working together, doing the same job. I have two examples here. I have an example of muscle tissue and nervous tissue. Muscle tissues have the ability to become shorter if they need to. They have extra mitochondria for energy. So these are two examples of the tissues. In total, there's 4 different kinds. Now, if we have different tissues working together, we get an organ. So organs are structures with 2 or more different tissues working together to do one type of job. So any organ like your brain, your heart, your stomach, your lungs, all those are going to be made up of different types of tissues. It could be made up of muscle tissue, connective tissue, or epithelial tissue with connective tissue, any kinds of tissues working together. Now, if we have different organs working together to accomplish something really difficult or complex or complicated, that's called a organ system. We have groups of organs working together. So here in this picture here, we have an example of an organ system. It's the digestive system. We've got a liver, a stomach, the large intestines, small intestines, and in between here is a pancreas, right? And the gallbladder is here, this little green part. So all these different organs are working together. It's a complicated thing to break down food for nutrients. So it takes many different organs doing small jobs and working together to get this done. And since they're all working together for this one job, we call that an organ system. Now, I have two examples on the slide. I have the muscle system and the digestive system. And we're going to talk about the circulatory system in the next video. We'll talk about that organ system more in depth. All right, so finally, we have a bunch of organ systems working together. And we will call that you, or a plant, or an animal. Anything that's living is going to be made up of these different parts. Now, they might not have the same organ systems, they might not have the same kind of organs, but they do have a level of organization to them. All right, you guys, that's it for this review video. I hope that helped. If you have questions, please feel free to email me. All right, bye, everybody.